With recent events in Bondi and the whole "as a woman, would you rather meet a bear or a man in the woods" thing going around at the moment, I thought it would be a good time to speak about when death and women's rights and issues intersect. As I've said before, I'm a death educator and a psych, and very early in my career I worked in domestic violence refuges and with war refugees. Oh yeah, and I'm a woman, so I kind of have a little bit of experience in that, funnily enough. Before we begin, we post death and dying related videos every Friday, so if that sounds like your kind of thing, consider subscribing to the channel. Now let's talk death and women's rights. Warning. Before we begin, I would like to state a few things. Firstly, this is not going to be a light-hearted video and it's likely to cause anxiety. If you're not in a good headspace, please check out now. 2. This video concerns women's rights and violations many women will endure. If you have a problem with that, please check out now also. And lastly, for the sake of simplicity, when I refer to men in this video, I'm referring only to these certain types of men, not the whole population. There are plenty of awesome, self-aware, emotionally mature men out there, and I am in no way referring to them in this video. But putting an asterisk on the end of everything you say drives me batty. So I'm letting you know this now so we all have an understanding. And with that long-winded heads up over, let's get onto the video. Necrophilia. Okay, so starting with the odd one, and this one is just my musings. There's no real basis of fact in this particular one, so let me know your thoughts in the comments. But a while back, we did a video on a modern day case of necrophilia, and I'll link that below if you haven't seen it. And one of the questions raised in this video is, who is being victimized in this case? And the family seemed to be the answer because their memory of the deceased was tarnished. But we've had another surge in publicised cases of violence against women recently, and it made me think, as a woman who spends your entire life being seen as an object and trying not to be touched, overpowered or taken advantage of physically, and you manage to get through life having dodged all that, and then you get got and victimised at the end when you can't fight, that is infuriating. Now, obviously, a dead woman won't be having these thoughts because they're dead, they're not thinking. But perhaps for living women, this is why we get so mad about the thought of it. The majority of us have the basic thoughts of, ill, that person is turned on by the dead, and they should know better, and we expect better from those at our morgues, and they shouldn't be touching what they know they're not supposed to. But I guess on a deeper level, it reinforces that you and a woman are only being seen as an object rather than a thinking, feeling being. And for me, it's the thought of spending all your life being on guard and protecting yourself only to be violated when your guard is down, so to speak, like it's just a given that'll happen. That is depressing. Maybe that's just me. Let you know your thoughts in the comments. Domestic violence. You know how I'm always going on about writing your advanced care directive and lodging it on your health records before you're sick and injured? This is one of those reasons. You need to write and lodge an advanced care directive before any relationship starts. Why? Because a lodged directive and the enduring power of guardianship will be enforced before the next of kin can have their say. Without one, your husband will automatically be in charge of your treatment and care. Now, in the majority of relationships, this won't be a problem. But it will be a massive problem if he is the one that put you in hospital in the first place. He will have power over how you die and the treatment you get, which, considering his abusive nature, is probably not going to be in your best interest. Now, I say write and lodge this directive before you get in a relationship, because once you're in that relationship and work out it's toxic, it's too late. And it is very unlikely that he's going to let you create one. Everyone goes into a relationship in good faith, but these people don't show their true selves until it's too late. A small piece of paperwork now can mean everything down the line. And while we're on the topic of DV, those who have never been through it or know someone who has will often just assume you can give the cops a call and the problem will disappear. And that could not be further from the truth for so many reasons. But it really doesn't help that the police force have a pretty high rate of being DV perpetrators themselves. In fact, some reports state that men who are police officers are 4 times more likely to be DV perpetrators than those not in that field. So no matter how many laws we have in place, it's kind of hard to change the dynamic if the people upholding the law are actively using their authority to cover their own asses and see that kind of situation as normal. Of course, there are plenty of great cops out there, but it only takes a couple within one station to make the whole thing pointless. Femicide. Femicide is the killing of a woman or girl because of her gender. It is an issue in every country to a different degree, and it stems from a large variety of different factors. Now, of course, it goes without saying that we should be trying to combat femicide and the reasons it happens in the first place. I shouldn't have to say that. Unfortunately, some of these reasons are easier to change than others. And because of this, violence against women, including murder, is never going to end. We can lessen it, absolutely, but it won't end. Why? Because we can teach better emotional regulation. We can teach consent, improve family dynamics, lower drug and alcohol addiction, and everything else that goes with it that all create this issue. But like any problem, these men have to want to change. And the ones who are on this path show no sign of that. They get what they want, so why would they change? And I say that because even if we could somehow get them to care, they would never get rid of those with psychopathic and narcissistic personality and brain chemistry. That will always exist, and those traits, while on a spectrum, are not uncommon in the slightest. Psychopathic and sociopathic symptom clusters are formally known as antisocial personality disorder. A lot of DV offenders would be on that spectrum. It's not just random stranger murders who would come under this title. And on the topic of the psychopath mind, if you are interested in learning more about that from a science perspective rather than a true crime perspective that we're all sick of hearing about it from, I strongly recommend this book. Written by a neuroscientist who worked out that he was a psychopath and had a psychopath's brain. It is a really interesting read, and I'll put the details in the description. Now, the other problem with combating femicide is the police. Again, reports have been coming out continually for the past 10 years, and I'll link some of them below, that show just how few sexual assault and DV cases are actually investigated. 1 in 7 cases actually receive any investigation. Not a conviction or trial, just be investigated at all. Now, obviously, most people that murder don't just come out of the blue. There are warning signs, such as sexual assault and DV. But it's only when a woman is murdered does it get any attention from the police. And before you blame the media for not highlighting cases of DV and assault cases, bear in mind that it would be a massive privacy risk that could easily put that victim in more danger. So yes, the media should be covering the topic, but not necessarily the specific cases. But the police absolutely should. The courts absolutely should. The punishment for assault and DV is pathetic in Australia, as it is in many countries. And if you don't care about this on an emotional level, because, I don't know, you've been hit in the head by a horse or something, may I also point out that the consequences of these crimes cost taxpayers millions every year. So maybe your wallet might help you pay attention. But again, the fact that it will never end completely does not mean that we can't significantly lessen the statistics in any way we can. And obviously, women being murdered will never end completely is not exactly a great tagline for advocates, and much of the population is not all that great with ambiguity. But we do need to be realistic. We will always have to be on guard. Our daughters, granddaughters will always have to be on guard. Maybe down the track, science will change, society will change in a drastic way, but it's not going to be in our lifetime or the next generation or the next generation after that. And I told you this wasn't going to be a positive one. Abandonment of the terminally ill. I've talked about this issue before. Everyone has an issue that really irks them, and this is mine. Men are 6 times more likely than women to abandon their partner when their partner is diagnosed with a terminal illness. Research is in the description. 6 times more likely. And that's only the stat for those who completely abandon. That's not including those who start up affairs during their partner's illness. Again, this isn't all men. I shouldn't have to keep saying this. I've seen hundreds of men be absolute rocks for their dying wives, doing everything you would expect of a loving partner. But that doesn't make that stat any less infuriating. And believe me, when you are working in hospice with a patient who's been abandoned by the very person who took the vow till death do us part, but chose to be a pathetic coward instead, yeah, that makes your blood boil. But with that in mind, something I've learned from these women that I can pass on to you is that your husband pissing off in your time of need will often, not always, but often, not come as a complete shock. These women were often doing all the work at home, looking after the kids. He was effectively just another kid to look after. She's doing all the chores, usually while having a full-time job. He never really put any effort into making her feel appreciated and got annoyed when she asked him out for help with basic things. An overall man-child. So if you take anything from this, I don't know, set higher standards, work on your self-esteem, don't settle for that crap. That is not a husband, and he will not be there for you in your time of need. He is not going to change. Make good choices and put plans in place so that if the worst happens, you and your kids are cared for. Learn from these women's mistakes. Now, this video hasn't been a fun one, and I'm usually of the opinion that you can laugh at anything, including death, but sometimes there's just nothing to laugh at. But if you take one thing from this video, please go and put things in place. You never know where life is going to take you. And if you would like a video on the psychology behind any of these issues that we've raised in this video, please let me know in the comments. Oh, and I know there are going to be, shall we say, certain types of men in the comments. And as much as comments do help promote videos in the algorithm, please don't engage with these morons. No one's mind has ever been changed by a comment on a random video on the internet. Don't give them the attention they want. And with that, go talk death.